Uh, hi everyone. Hi Krishna. Hi Tofi. Hi Sandrine. Hi Hari, Muhammad, Avinash, Lay, Bhavesh, Rivan, Akil, Vijay, Sakti Kumar. Hi. Hey. Let me just. Okay. Hi Murli. Hi Fatima. Hi Vishnu. Hi Anbarasan. Hi Tim. Hi Manikanda. Okay. So let's just wait 2 minutes. I'll just wait 2 minutes and then I'll start. Okay. So just a quick question. Were you guys able to solve the assignment that I gave you yesterday? Is there anyone uh, who was not able to solve any problem, or is there any problem that you found you got stuck or something? Okay, so they were all very basic questions, right? It was just giving you kind of like a taste of how to write the most simplest of SQL queries, right? Uh, I'm not planning to cover or basically solve all those queries in today's class. But if you have any specific SQL query among those list of 13 queries that you would want me to solve, then just let me know. Okay. So whatever you ask me to solve, I'll solve only those. Uh, and then maybe I can move on to the next set of queries. Okay, so again today also we will be covering basic SQL queries only. I'll try to start with joins. Okay, and we'll see some simple aggregate functions and etc. But all basic SQL queries. So today's class and probably next session as well, we'll only be solving basic SQL queries. I'm hoping by the end of next class you would have solved around at least 40 basic SQL queries, and hopefully that should give you pretty good practice of how to solve basic SQL queries, and then we can move on to the intermediate concepts. Okay, how to fetch the last transaction using MS SQL. Okay, so we'll see that sometime. Okay, so this particular question maybe we'll see later. For me, it was a good practice. Okay, fine. Did everyone try to use the dataset that I gave? Did you try to upload the dataset into your respective databases? Because yesterday I saw someone, uh, I think someone was using PostgreSQL database, but they were running the MS SQL file. So actually, if you look at all the four data sets that I gave, they're all the same. Okay, the data is the same, the tables are the same, the columns are the same. The only difference was, I think, when you are trying to convert the date in MS SQL, I think you can use convert. In MySQL, I think you can use date format, if I'm not wrong. And then in Oracle, you can use to date, and also in PostgreSQL, you can use to date. So that was the only difference, I think. Okay, so the functions that we were using, other than that, everything else probably was the same. And due to that, I'm giving you four different files for four different databases. Okay, and today as well, I have a new data set. Of course, first let me try to cover as much as possible using the banking data set. I have, I think, another uh, around six different queries that I would like to solve today, and then we will move on to a new data set. It's going to be a sales order data set, using which we will mainly try to solve join related queries. Okay, why do we use backticks in query in the why do we use backticks? What is backticks, Rahul? How to fetch the last row in PostgreSQL? How to fetch last row in PostgreSQL? I think I already provided you. Uh, if you watch yesterday's recording at the end, we already solved that. How to fetch the last one record and last five record. Okay, so backticks means comments. Okay, so So generally, why we use comment? What exactly is a comment? So when you're writing a piece of code, if you want to give some additional information to whoever is going to be reading that code in the future, you can provide those information within the comments, because when you run that entire script, whatever is mentioned within the comments, the compiler is not going to execute that. Okay, so if you want to give it, so in your script, right, generally whether it is SQL, Python, or whatever it is, whatever is executable by the compiler, the actual code of that programming language, you need to write it normally in your text. But if you want to give any additional information, like you just want to explain what this code is doing, or why you have added a particular line of code, or etc., right? Whenever you want to add anything in plain English, then you need to put it in inside a comment, so that when you run the script, the compiler is going to ignore whatever is mentioned within the comments. That's the whole purpose of having comments. Okay, backticks equal to user something. What is, where did I use user actually? So I think only in the first line in MySQL script, I have something called as use demo. Demo is basically the database name, but your database name might be different. You might have created with banking or whatever. So you need to specify the database, okay, in MySQL. Okay, so if you have any specific question, right, try to put it in the Q&A tab. Now let's start, okay, with today's class. I'm just going to share my screen. Let me know once you're able to see the screen. Okay. Okay, so I think we were here. We finished till here, right? Okay, so I'll just open a new session. My voice is clear, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take one of the questions from yesterday's list of assignment, and then I'll try to solve it. Okay, and that is this one. Identify the total number of wire transactions. So I'm sure many of you have solved it. Can you tell me what did you use to solve this particular problem? Distinct. So what did you guys use? Did you use distinct count or something else? Okay, so Shantanu says count of transaction type. Okay, fine. So most of you guys use count, but Abhay used a group by. Okay, so Abdul Malik used sum. So I see most of you guys used count, but some of them used sum and group by and distinct, etc. Okay, so let me try to solve this. Okay, now try to understand the problem. So okay, first of all, let me copy this list of tables. Okay. The problem tells identify the total number of wire transfer transactions. So first of all, you need to understand what exactly is wire transfer transactions, right? Now there is something called as transactions here. So looks like this question may be related to a transaction, right? So we'll go into the transactions table, and you can see that I have something called as wire transfer. So looks like they're asking us to count there are how many records are there where the value of transaction type is equal to wire transfer, right? This is what they are asking us to basically return. Now, whenever you want to count how many number of records are present in your table, we have an aggregate function called as count. Okay. Now, before anything, right, let me tell you what a function is in the most simplest of terms. Of course, we will be looking at the user defined functions much later in the in our course, but just to give you an intro about what functions are, uh, a function is a piece of code. Okay, you can call it like a block of code. What happens is every function generally is created for a specific purpose. Okay, and whenever you call a function, it will always return some value to you. Okay, so whenever you call a function, you will get something in return. Okay, so for example, there are several types of functions. For example, you might have heard of window functions, right? And then there is something called as aggregate functions, right? And then there are a lot of inbuilt functions. So when I say inbuilt functions here, there are a lot of date functions, and then string functions, and then there are numeric functions, etc., etc. Many such functions. Okay. Now, each type of these functions do a specific task. We'll look at all of this whenever that particular topic comes. But let's start by looking at these aggregate functions. Now, as part of these aggregate functions, right, there are generally 5 functions. Okay, so we have sum, okay, we have average, we have min, we have max, and then we have count. Okay, just the name of these functions should probably tell you what they are meant to do, right? So for example, let's say if I am in my transaction table, okay, so this particular problem, so let's say select from transactions, transactions, okay, where transaction type equal to this one, right? So let me copy this, wire transfer. Okay, why? Here they are told identify the total number of wire transfers. So I am only interested in those records where the transaction type is wire transfer. So I have put this filter condition, and I know the table is transactions, right? Now, if I want to count the number of records, then I can put a function called as count. Okay. Now, count is basically an aggregate function. You need to open a parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis, you need to provide either a column name, or you can provide a star, or you can provide any numeric values or any hard-coded values. Okay. Now, I'll tell you the difference between all of that in a short while. But basically, when I do count of star, what it will do is SQL in return, it will go into the transaction table. It will fetch all the records from the transaction table which satisfies this filter condition, and then it's not going to return you the number of, it's not going to return you all the record or basically all the column values, because in the select here I have not mentioned any column name. So let's say if I had mentioned transaction id and all the other column names, then all that column values would be returned. But instead of mentioning the column names, what I have done is I have given a function here that is an aggregate function. This aggregate function will not return you the column values, it will just return you how many records are there, the count of the total number of records, which satisfies all these conditions. Okay, so in that case, now when I run this, you can see I'm getting 30. Okay, so the total number of wire transfers are 30. But let's say if I wanted to find how many transactions are there in the how many transactions are present which are not wire transfer, then I can do something called as a not equal to. Okay, so this symbol here basically means not equal to wire transfer, and now when I run it, it's telling me 70. So this means that there are totally 30 wire transfer transactions and there are 70 non other than wire transfer transactions. Right, now this not equal to, you can also represent it like, I think, this way. Okay, with this symbol. So this one also will work. Both are fine. Okay, but for now I'm only interested in this one, that is a wire transfer. So let me just have both the queries written here so I don't overwrite anything. And let's say this is just for your information. Okay, not equal to, and I'll say we can also use this to represent not equal not okay. This is just for your reference. Whenever you look at my notes, you kind of get understanding. Okay, now this is fine. So whenever I want to count the number of records, I can use count of one. But similarly, there are 4 other aggregate functions, right? And just the name of those should basically tell you what they are. But let's look at with proper example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute my what is this transaction table, and let's say if I wanted to count all the amount, okay, for all the wire transfer transactions, then what I can do is I can just tell sum, but in this case not star, because star we generally use with the count, and what star tells is star basically means every column. Okay, now I'll tell you the difference between count of star, count of one, and count of column names at the end now. But before that, let's look at sum. So sum of amount, what this will do is, first SQL will fetch all the required records. Okay, So let's say, I think in this case 30 records will get returned. From that 30 records, it's only going to look into the amount field, and from the amount field, it's only going to do a sum of all those amounts for those 30 records. Okay, so now when I run this, you can see I'm getting what is this, 155,975, right? So this is a total sum of amount for all the transactions where the transaction type is wire transfer, right? This is what sum does. It will sum together all the values. Now similarly, I can also do an average. Okay, so I can also find the average of this amount. And now if I run, you can see that the average is 5,199, right? Previously, what we did was we did count of star, right? So if I run this, you can see I can have multiple aggregate functions in the same query, okay? And this will all work. So you can, I will then also show you. So now I have done the average of amount, and let's also look at the other two aggregate functions. So we have which minimum and maximum value can I take? So let's say I'll take minimum of transaction date, okay? And I'll also take maximum of transaction date. Okay, and now when I run all of this, it's a typo, TRNS date. Okay, so now you can see that I have just used aggregate functions on my query to get different type of results, and this should probably tell you what all of these 5 aggregate functions are meant to do. We use these aggregate functions a lot. Okay, even in complex SQL queries, aggregate functions are used a lot, not like because they have so much of usefulness. Okay, whenever we are doing some calculations, we use this. So I hope this is clear. So when I say minimum of transaction date, within those 30 records which belong to the wire transfer transaction, it will go and it will check which was the least transaction date. Okay, and then this max will basically check within those 30 records what was the max transaction date. Okay, now it's very important that it will do all of these calculations for the number of records that is returned from here. Okay, so you can see here. So let's do one thing. I'm just going to take a screenshot of this. Okay, so I'll just take a screenshot of this. Just I want to show you the difference. Okay, so I'll keep this here. Okay, so I'll keep this here. Now, when I executed this, I had put this filter condition, but let's say when I do not put the filter condition and I just run from the transaction table entirely, then you can see what is the difference here, right? So I'm not sure if this is big enough. Okay, now I think it's big enough. So you can see that initially when I put the filter condition, it did all these calculations only for the number of records returned, right? Initially it told the count was 30 and it gave all this, but here you can see without the filter, it's telling in that entire table there are 100 records, right? And then you can see all the values are different, right? Even the minimum date, you can see it is 9th May and here it is 27th May, right? So whenever you put a filter condition and do aggregate function, the aggregation will happen only for the number of records that is returned from the query. Okay, so the aggregation always happens at the very end internally by SQL. Okay, I'm just going to remove this. I hope that is clear. Now let's is it all clear? Did you understand? Okay, now before I ask you a question, I want to tell you the difference between these regarding these counts. Okay, so let's do that. So I have count of star and it's returning me 30. Now let me take a different table here. Okay, so let's take a table, maybe customers. Okay, so I'm going to take customers table. Okay, and let's say I will just put customers, and here I'll not put any filter conditions. Okay, so I'll just have the entire table. Now, when I do a count of star from the customers table, it's telling me that there are 20 customers, right? Now, instead of doing a count of star, we can also do count of one. And for me, uh, I always am used to using count of one. Um, and if you see that the output is basically the same. Okay, the difference between count of star and count of one is what happens is As I told you, initially the query gets executed. First, SQL will go to the from clause. It will see which tables. It will then go to the filter condition. It will see which records it has to fetch. Okay. So all the records that it needs to fetch, it will be ready. Okay. SQL will have it. And then it will go and look at the select clause. In the select clause, it will see what are the columns that I need to fetch. Okay. Or is there any function that I need to apply? In this case, there is a function that I need to apply. The function is count of star. What this star basically means is every column. So internally, how this works was how it used to work previously in the older versions of databases is that it will, so let's say your table has 10 columns, it will go and fetch 10 columns, and then it will try to do a count of each record. So unnecessarily it has to go and fetch the 10 columns first, right? But when I do a count of one, what this will tell is it does not have to bother about the columns. Even if the table has 10 columns, 100 columns, or one column, it does not have to bother, because I'm just hard coding a value 1, right? So the time that is spent in fetching the columns will be saved, and that is why count of 1 was slightly faster. But to be frank, the difference between the performance of these two is so minimum that you can kind of use both or any one of them, and they does not make any much difference in the performance in today's databases. I learned about this, I think, around 10 years back when I started my 10-13 years back when I started my career. And at that stage, count of 1 did make some improvement in the performance. Now I think with every new version of the databases, they do a lot of improvements, and now there is basically no much difference. Okay, but I am just used to using count of 1, so I use it. You can use count of 1 or count of star, they both basically are the same. And when I say count of 1, it's not just count of 1, you can use any value. So I can also put any number. Okay, so and if I run it, it's still the same. Okay, and let's say instead of number, I can also put some characters. Okay, so in that case also it's the same. So what I mean to say is, it does not matter what value you put here until unless it's a hard coded value. Okay, so I'll just to, in case you want to check in the future. Okay, all of these are basically the same. This is all basically returning the total number of records. Now, similarly, there is also one other way of doing that, and that is I can actually specify a column name here from the table. So let's say I'm going to specify column name phone number. Okay. Now, when I run this, can anyone tell me what will be the count of, what will be the value that is returned from here? Count of phone number. Anyone? 20. Okay. Anyone? How many think 20, or how many think it is something other than 20? So 16, 17. Okay, so some of you guys are aware. So now let me run this, and you can see that the count is returning 17, right? I do not have any filter conditions here. So this should basically be fetching every single record from the customer table, and the customer table has 20 records, but still this count of phone number is returning me 17, right? And why is it returning 17? We'll look at that. But before that, let's do one more thing. Okay, I'll just say count of customer ID. Okay, and now let me run this. Now can you tell me what would count of customer ID return? Will it again return 17 or something else? 20. Okay, so now let's run this, and you can see here what happens was, whenever you are using a column name from the table, it's going to exclude the records where this value is null. Okay, in our case, in our customers table, there are, I think, 3 records where you can see the phone number is null, right? So these 3 records will get ignored. So out of 23 is removed. So that is why it's returning 17. But when it comes to customer ID is a primary key column. So definitely it's never going to have a null value. So that is why it's going to consider all the columns, and that is why it's returning 20. Okay. So this is all the difference about count function. I hope this is clear. If you have any questions, let me know, or else I will try to move on to the next part. Okay. So let me know if you have any questions, or I'll move to the next question here. Okay, let's try to solve this. Okay, next, please. Okay, so this is a good question from Digital Tech Connect about 1 equal to 1 and 1 equal to 2. So before I go to the next one, this is a very important thing that you should know. Let's look at that. Okay, so And let's say I'm going to use the same query. Okay, so let's say I'll use this query itself. Okay, I'll put it here. Okay, so count of stars from transactions where transaction type not equal to wire transfer. Now let's say I put another condition here where one equal to one. Okay, and now I run this. So previously when I ran this, I got 70 records, right? Not equal to wire transfer. Now when I run this totally, can you tell me how many records will I get? 70? 70. Okay. Now let's say uh, so you're telling 1 equal to 1 is 70, and that is true. Why? Because what basically every where condition that you have, or every and condition, or every or condition that you have, internally what SQL is doing is it's basically going to check if this expression is going to return true or false. If it's going to return true, then it's going to include those records. If it's going to return false, then it's going to exclude those records. Okay, depending on whether you're using and or. Okay, now in this particular case, this expression will return true because 1 is always equal to 1, right? Since this is true, and any record that matches these conditions where it is true, it's going to return those records. So we already know this returned 70, and this was anyways true, so it did not make any difference. Hence, it's going to still return the 70 records, that is same number of records. But let's say if I put 1 equal to 2, now can you tell me how many records will it return? Okay, it's going to return 0. Why? Because 1 is not equal to true. So 1 is not equal to 2. That means this expression is going to return false. Okay. So even though this returned true for 70 records, and since this returned false for basically it returned false, and since I'm using an and operator here, this whole thing is going to return 0 records because true and false will return false as per the formula that I gave you yesterday, right? Now let's say instead of and, if I use or, and now if I run this, now can you tell me what will happen? How many records will I get? 70, right? Okay, it's going to return 70. Why? Because 1 equal to 2, this is false, right? This expression will return false. But my first expression here is returning true for 70 records, right? So these 70 records will still return. Why? Because I'm using an or operator. So true or false will still return true, right? That's the whole concept. Okay, I hope that is clear. Now let's move on to the Okay, so let's move on to the next one. And I think if you remember in the first session or in the second session, when I was creating a table, I did use 1 equal to 2. Okay, why? Whenever I'm using 1 equal to 2 in my where condition, I know that it's always going to return 0 records, right? Sometimes I want the query to return 0 records. In that case, I would generally use something like this. Okay, just some shortcuts that we use. Okay, so now let's go on to the next question. Can anyone write this query? If anyone is able to write this query, just share it here. In the meantime, I'll try to solve it. Okay, so we will be solving a lot of SQL queries in our course, and I will generally start with a question something like this, and then if you want to solve it on your own, you can solve it and you can share your problem. Whosever solution I find right, I might share it here. Okay, because in some cases my solution might be different from your solution, and that's the beauty of SQL. A particular SQL problem can be solved in so many different ways. Okay, now let's look at this particular problem. Find the employees working in Mumbai. Okay, so I need to find employees who are working in Mumbai. So let's look at our table. So I'm looking at employees, right? Now if I go to employees table, I can see I have the employee ID, their name, their salary, and their branch code. But how do I come to know among these 10 employees who are the employees who are working in Mumbai? Can you tell me how do I find that? Which tables should I use? Join, right? I need to join with another table. So because in my employee table, I can find out the employees, but I cannot find out in which location they are based, right? Because I have branch code, but branch code does not tell me Mumbai or Bangalore or whatever, right? But then this branch code, this is basically a foreign key which is referencing to another table, that is a branch table. And in the branch table, for each branch code, it's telling me what is the location. So if I want to find the employees who are working in Mumbai, I have that Mumbai here. So I have this branch code BR2. Okay. So one way of doing that is I can just tell select star from employees. where branch code equal to BR2, right? So I can hard code a value, and if I execute this, I'm getting these two employees, right, who are working in Mumbai. But this is a wrong way of writing a query. Okay, why is it a wrong way? Because you are hard coding a value BR2. Okay, so and better approach would be that instead of using BR2, the value that was given to us was Mumbai, but tomorrow they might give some other state. Every time you'll have to go and query another table to identify what is the code for that particular place, and then you will need to modify your query. Rather, why don't you just use the values that is given in your question and then try to write a generic query, right? So I know that if I go into my branch table, so I select star from branch table, I can, and if I tell where, let's say, what was that? What is the name of the branch name, right? So branch name equal to, I can tell Mumbai, right? So if I tell branch name equal to Mumbai, I'll get this branch code, right? And if I want, my intention is to find the employee details. So my my employee details is present in the employee table, but in order to identify which branch this Mumbai belongs to, it is present in the branch table. In this case, what's happening is the solution that I want for this particular query is scattered across two different tables. So I need to use employee table as well as I need to use branch table. In this case, we need to use the concept called as join. Now, as the name itself means, join basically means joining different tables, right? We can join two tables, we can join 10 tables, any number of tables, okay? And there are different types of joins. We'll start with looking at the most basic type of join, which is called as inner join. Okay, so let's try to use an inner join to solve this problem. So I'm just going to say select from, I know that one of the tables that I need is the employees table. I'll give an alias E. Then I'm going to say inner join. Okay, so inner join with the branch table. I'll give an alias B. And then whenever you're using an inner join, we need to use this on clause to specify the joining condition. On which columns are you actually linking these tables, or on which column are you actually joining these tables? Okay, so I can just tell b dot branch code equal to e dot branch code. Okay, and here find employees. So they are just telling us to find employees. So I can just do e dot star. So e dot star basically means e is the employee table, all the columns from the employee table. Okay, now if I run this, oh, okay, I have put this condition, but you see that I'm still getting all the employees. Why am I getting all the employees? Because I have not put the filter condition where the branch is Mumbai, right? So my filter condition will come in the where clause. So here I need to say where b dot branch name equal to Mumbai. Okay. Now if I run this, now you can see I am getting the two employees who are working in Mumbai. Okay. Now this basically is a join. So what happens internally is SQL knows that in the from clause you have mentioned two tables. Okay. So there is an employee table and there is a branch table, and you have connected these two tables using something called as an inner join. Okay. What an inner join will do is it will first look at what on which join condition are you basically linking these two tables. So it will see that you're joining these two tables using the branch code, and it's an inner join. So what it will do is SQL will go into the employees table. It will see that you have branch code BR1 and BR2, and then in the branch table it will see that you have branch code BR1, BR2 and BR3. Okay, inner join will only fetch the matching records. So when I say matching records, and the matching records based on the join condition that you have given, right? So the matching records based on the join condition is basically all the records that belong to BR1 and BR2. Okay, BR3 will be excluded. Why? Because BR3 is present in branch table, but BR3 is not present in the employee table, right? You can only see records with BR1 and BR2. Okay, so only the records where the data is present in both the tables based on the join condition will be returned. Okay, so this is what a join condition will do. So when I only run this, it's going to fetch me the 10 records, because these 10 records are basically matching all this branch code condition. Okay, and then whenever you want to apply a filter condition, again we can use a where clause here, and here I can tell whatever the filter that I want. Okay, so from these 10 records, it's going to filter for this particular branch. Okay, branch name is basically, okay, so for example, I can also tell b dot star, just to make it clear. If I run this, now you can see I'm also getting the branch code. Now I'm only interested in Mumbai, so you can see that only two records where I have Mumbai is basically these two records, right? So only these two records will get returned when I run the entire query. So this is basically how we use joins in tables. Okay. Now, can anyone? I'll ask you one question. Okay. I have this query here, and let's say I'll modify this query like this. So instead of using where, I'll use an and here. And if I try to run this, can you tell me, will the output be the same or different? And what exactly is the difference between these two queries? Anyone? Okay, it would be the same. But can you tell me which is a better way of writing the query? Which one is better, the first one or the second one? Which is a more right way of writing this query? Okay, first one. Okay, the first one is a better way of writing the query because whenever we have filter conditions, we always should put filter conditions in the where clause. Okay, and this on clause should always be used to put the join conditions. So when I say join conditions, it's all the conditions that you need to join tables. Okay, so sometimes you may have to join tables using 2 columns or 3 columns. In that case, all the join condition you should put it inside the on clause. Okay, only the filter conditions, that is what you need to put here. Okay, so always remember, now with the inner join, whether you put a filter condition or join condition, everything inside the on clause, it does not make much difference. But when we come to these left joins and right joins and other type of joins, in that case, this will make a big difference in the data that will be returned. Okay, and we will look into that when we come to that stage. But it's always a good practice that put your join conditions in the on clause and put your filter conditions in the where clause. Okay, always remember this. I hope everything is clear. Okay, in case of inner join, does Cartesian product happens first internally and then on the basis of filter condition we get result. Okay, so whenever you are using an inner join, generally if you have used the proper join condition, then the Cartesian product will not happen. So what exactly is a Cartesian product? Cartesian product is basically uh, when you get every record from all the tables that you have used in your query. Okay, so for example, it's a pretty good question and it's pretty useful in this particular scenario as well. Okay, so let me try to explain. So uh, let's put this query here and okay, so let's do one thing. Now I have tried to join these two tables based on branch code. Okay, and let's say, okay, in inner, I think in an inner join Cartesian product cannot happen, but I'll show you one particular sample. Okay, so let's say I have my employees table and I have all of these columns. So let's say I'm just going to say where instead of joining the tables using branch code, let's say I wanted to join it using the primary key of both the tables. So I'm just going to say e dot employee ID and I'll say b dot branch code. Okay, and let's say I'll remove this filter condition for now, and now I'll run this. Can anyone tell me what is the output of this query? How many records will I get? Can anyone tell me? Anyone? What will be the output of this query? 0. Okay, so I'll run this and you can see it is 0. Why? Because in this particular case, this join condition failed because I'm trying to see if any employee ID present in the employee table is present in this column of the branch table, in the branch code column of the branch table. It does not happen, right? We do not have similar values, and that is why none of the records get matched, and hence we are returning 0 records. So in an inner join, Cartesian product is not possible to happen because in an inner join, this on clause is mandatory. I cannot write a query without an on clause. So let's say if I try to run this query without the on clause, it's going to throw me an error telling that inner join, basically it's telling syntax error. Why? For an inner join, this on clause is mandatory, and whenever you give on clause, whenever you give this join condition inside the on clause, either the records will match or the records will not match. There is no possibility of a Cartesian product. Cartesian product will happen when we are using a cross join, and I'll come to cross join a little later. Okay, so the answer to your question, I think, Supriya, we will come to that at a later stage when we look at other type of joints. Okay, I hope all of this is clear now. What's the time? Okay, so I'm going to spend 5 minutes in answering the questions before I get into the next part of the problem. Okay, so I have some questions that I need to. Okay, so the next query that I have is this one. Let's try to solve this query. But before that, if you have any questions, I'll just maybe spend 3 to 5 minutes only. Okay, not more. Okay, so not much questions I see. If I want to count distinct values, should I? Okay, count of distinct values. Good question. Let's look into that. Um, okay, and how to comment multiple lines. Okay, so count of distinct values. It's a pretty good question and related to what we covered. So let's look at that. So I'm again going to take the same customers table and I'll put it here. Okay, so I'll say select count of customers table has what values. Okay, count of is active. Okay, so is active is, where did I go? Where did that go? Okay, so count of is active. Okay, if I run this, you can see I'm getting 20 records. Why? In is active column, there are no null values. I'm getting all the records from this table. But if I wanted to find the total number of distinct values in this particular column, then I can use the distinct clause here. Okay, and if I run this now it's returning me only 2. Okay, what it is doing is, first internal it will do a distinct of is active. Distinct of is active will return 2 records, and those 2 records is actually going to count. Okay, so we can, in order to find the distinct count, we can use this particular syntax. So put count inside the parenthesis, put your column, but before your column just put whatever distinct you want to put. Okay, and if you want to comment multiple lines, so let's say if I wanted to comment these 3 lines together, then I can use this particular command. Okay, so your slash star and then star and slash, so whatever you put inside this, it will get commented. Okay, so I'll just keep it as it is for now. Okay, so I don't think there are any other questions. Oh man, okay, so this offset, maybe we'll look at this later. Okay, what is order of execution flow? Regarding the order of execution flow, I'll explain that a little later when we cover all the other concepts. Okay, let's cover group by, having clause and everything. Then I will tell you the order of execution. Okay, so let's try to now solve this particular problem. I'll go back to the live chat. We have a few different things to cover today. Okay, so now I will be solving around 4 different problems and I will need your help in solving them. Okay, so if you want to solve it on your own, you can solve it. So the first question is, find the total number of successful transactions that belongs to the inactive customers. Okay, my first question is, what are the tables I need to use in order to solve this problem? Just answer me that. Just tell me what are the tables that I need to use. Okay, transactions and customers. Okay, so everyone is selling transactions and customers, and the reason for that is I have been told to find a total number of successful transactions. Okay, so first I need to find a total number of successful transactions that belong to inactive customers. So it's very clear that I need to fetch the transactions, but I need to fetch the transactions which are successful. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I need to fetch these successful transactions only belonging to inactive customers, right? So let's look at these 2 tables. So I have the customers table and I have the transactions table, right? So in my transactions table, if I wanted to find the successful transactions, what I can do is I have the status columns and I have success or failure. So if I just filter based on the status column, I should get the value. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say transactions. I'll give an alias P, and my first filter condition here just would be P dot status equal to success, right? So that's the first condition, right? But this will basically return me all the successful transactions. So let's say if I run this, returning me how many? 79 records. Okay. But this is not what I want. I also want to check. I want to return the number of successful transactions. Okay, so they are telling I need to find the number of successful transactions. So when they're telling number of successful transactions, it means I need to count the number of records, right? So this is what I want. Okay, so I'm getting 79. But this is just checking for successful transaction. But I additionally also need to check only those transactions which belong to inactive customers. So if I go into my customers table, if I want to find inactive customers, I have this column is active, and wherever it is false, it means that the customer is inactive, right? So I will need to put this filter condition here, but this filter condition is present coming from the customers table. So meaning I need to join with the customers table. So I can just tell join customers, and let's say I'm going to give an alias C, and I will put my join condition here. I'll just tell C. Okay, so how do I join these two tables? So I have customer ID here, and then first name, address, and everything. And in my transaction table, I have, okay, so how do I join these two tables? Because I don't have a customer ID in my transaction table. So can you tell me how do I join these two tables? Okay, so Lay has already answered that. That's fantastic. Because I do not have customer ID table in the transaction table. So basically, there is no way I can join these two tables. But in the transaction table, we have something called as an account number, right? And I know that this account number is always related to a customer, right? So I have another table called as accounts. And if you look at accounts table, I have the account number and I also have the customer ID. So what this means is I can join accounts table with the customers table using the customer ID column, and then I can join customer table with the transaction table, sorry, accounts table with the transaction table using the account number column. And I told you, I think in the very first class, it's like the simple mathematical formula, right? If A equal to B and B equal to C, then A is equal to C, right? The same way, I join accounts with customers and then I join transactions with accounts, and then I can imply that customers and transactions are also linked. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now before I can even join with customers, I'm going to join it with the accounts table. So I'm just going to say accounts. I'll give alias A, and I'll put my join condition telling that A dot cust ID cust ID is equal to, okay, now this is one more important thing to remember. Whenever you're doing a join, right? So I have this table in this particular line, so I can use any column from that table, but I need to join with a table column which is already written previously here. Okay, but here I have written transaction table, but I need to do this join with the customers table, right? So what I need to do is I'll put this transaction table a little later here, and I will consider the customers table at the top. Okay, and now here I can just tell C dot, I think it is customer ID. Okay, so I have the customers table I took first, then I took my accounts table, then I did the join based on the customer ID, and now I'm joining with the transaction table. And my transaction table, I can just tell, so in my transaction table I have account number, so I can just tell T dot account number is equal to, in my accounts table, what is it called? It's called account number. So account number. Okay, so this way I have joined three tables together. Okay, and now I need to add my filter conditions. So if I just run this, it will only fetch all the transactions which are successful. I also need to add another filter condition for inactive customers, and that will be C dot, I think, is active equal to false, right? And now if I run this, I'm getting 29, right? So if I run this without the is active, I'm getting 79 transactions, 79 records. But when I check for inactive customers, I'm getting 29. So this means there are 29 transactions which belongs to 29 successful transactions which belong to inactive customers. Okay. Is this all clear how we join multiple tables and how the sequence of these tables in which order you mention is important? Because if I had put this transaction table at the top, then I would not be able to do this join. Okay. So for example, let's say I'll just change the order of the tables that I have mentioned. So let's say I'll put this transactions table at the top here, and I'll put the customers table here. And now let's see if this works. Okay, so missing from clause. entry for table C. Okay, so I think the error may not be very meaningful, but this is not working. Why? Because how the execution will happen is it will start from here. It will start from the from clause. It will take the first table, then it will go to the first join. And when it goes to this join, it will try to join these two tables. And you can see here, I'm trying to join a table C that basically I have not defined yet, right? This C table gets defined in the next line. Okay, so when SQL is executing, it's going one by one line at a time. So that is why you need to, whenever you are using this join condition, whatever tables you are using, both these tables should be present either in this line or in previous to that line. Okay, so that is why this will not work. I hope this is clear. I'll just put a comment here: does not work due to order of the tables. Okay, and I'll uncomment it here. Okay, is this clear? Any questions about this particular question, or if it is clear, can I proceed? Okay, so good question from Bhavesh. Now, this inner join, right? I previous query I wrote inner join, and in this query I wrote join. Okay, what is the difference? Actually, there is no difference. Why? Inner join is same as join. This inner keyword is an optional keyword. So if you want, you can mention inner, or you can skip it. Okay, the same thing goes to a lot of other type of join. Left join, generally left join is also called as left outer join. Full join is called as full outer join. The inner and the outer keyword are actually optional. Okay, so you can, if you want to make it very clear, you can put inner join. But even in your query, if you just put join, they basically mean the same. They are also inner join. So the inner keyword is optional. Okay. Um, so Anbaran, as I told you, you can change the joining columns. But the only thing is, if you change the joining columns, and if those columns are not having matching records, then your query is not going to return any record. Okay. So it's not going to throw an error, but the data that is going to get returned will be changed. Okay. Because the data gets returned based on the matching records between these two columns. Okay. So I hope that is clear. Now let's look at the next problem. Okay. So I'll go to the next one. That is this one. So if anyone wants to solve it, you can solve. So the problem basically tells, I'll have this here. Okay. Okay. So the problem tells categorize employees based on their salary. Okay. So we need to categorize employees based on their salary. If the salary is below 50K, then I need to print it like low salary. If the salary is between 50 to 70K, I want to display medium salary. And if the salary is above 70K of any employee, then we should display like he is having high salary. Okay. What is that we can use to solve this problem? What is that particular concept? If you do cust ID equal to account number, right, it's not going to return any value because customer ID is having a different value, account number is having a different value, right? So there will be no join, no matching records, hence the number of records would be zero. You can try it out. Okay, I'm going to share the session notes later, and you can then modify the query. You can change the join conditions, and you can see how the result will differ. Okay, so most of you guys are telling case statement, and I think one Tofi is telling group by. Okay, actually, we don't really need to use group by in this particular case. We can straight away use case statement. So let's see how to do that. First of all, which table do I need to use? That's the very first thing that we need to find out, right? And what are the filter conditions that I need, and what is the select clause? This is what you, when you're getting started with SQL, just write select from where, and then try to figure out what are the different things that you need to enter here. Okay, so categorize employees based on their salary. So it means it looks like I only need to use the employee table here, right? So I can just say employees, and if I go into my employees table, I have the salary information already here. So I need to categorize the employees based on their salary. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say I'm just going to print their names, right? So in order to print their names, I'm just going to say first name, okay, and then I'll do a concat. I'll leave a space here. I'll say last name, okay, and then I'll use a case statement, okay, and here I'll just tell case when salary is less than below 50, okay, is less than 50,000, then I'll print like low salary. Okay, and then I'll tell if the salary is another condition for this particular check. Okay, so when the salary is so between 50 and 70. Okay, so I can just tell salary between 50 1 to 3 and 70 1 to 3. Okay, then I want to display like medium salary, right? Medium salary, right? And then I will tell my last condition, that is when salary is greater than 70,000, then high salary. Okay, then I'll have an else part. Else, I'll say something else. Okay, I'll print it like strange. Okay, and then I need to end my case statement and I can give an alias. So let's say this is categories. Okay, and I don't need a filter condition here because I'm just categorizing the salaries. And now if I run this, you can see here what I'm basically getting is for each, and maybe I'll give a name here as full name, and I'll put this entire thing inside the parenthesis. Okay, and now if I run this, you can see here I'm getting the employee full name, and it's telling if the employee is having low salary or medium salary or high salary or whatever. Okay, so I just use a case statement here. What I have basically done is inside the case statement, every when clause is used to specify one condition. So I put my first condition here, that is this expression. If this expression will return true, then it will print this. Okay, once any of these conditions will return true, it will just skip any other conditions. Okay, so if this condition will return false, then it will go into the second when condition and it will check for this condition. And if this expression will return true, then it will print whatever you have mentioned in the then clause and it will come out of the query. Okay, but if this condition also is false, then it will go into the third condition and it will check if this expression is returning true or false. If it returns true, then this will get printed. If it returns false, then it will come to the else part. Okay, so if none of these three conditions will hold true, if all these three conditions will return false, then only it will come to the else part, and in else part whatever you are given, it will get printed. Okay, is this clear? Now I want to do certain modifications in this. Okay, so can you tell me in which condition will the else part get executed? Anyone? In which condition will the else part get executed here? Yeah, that is what I explained. But with regards to the data, what is the salary for which else part would get executed? Okay, fantastic. So if there is a salary which is null, right? If there is a null salary, there are no salary at all, then the else part will get executed. Why? Because it does not match any of these conditions, right? So below 50K will get executed here, right? Okay, only when it is null, it will come and execute the strange section. Okay, now this is all about case statement. We will be looking at some queries where we will be writing nested cases as well, but that we will come little later. Okay, there's a second thing that I want to explain here is this particular thing, this pipe symbol that I have used here. Whenever you want to concatenate multiple column values or multiple values, we can use this pipe symbol. Okay, so basically, in order to explain this better, I can just tell select, let's say tech. Okay, and I can put the double pipe symbol and then I can say TFQ. Okay, and if I execute this, it's going to return me tech TFQ. Okay, what happened was it just concatenated two values here. Okay, so and I can give an alias here like let's say name, and if I execute, it's returning me tech TFQ. But similarly, if I wanted to add a space in between, I can also do that. I can just put a space in between here, and I can again put a double pipe symbol and it will concat. Okay, now another way of concatenating values is by using a function called as concat. Okay, so I can just concat these, and in that case I don't need to use the pipe symbol, and I can just use a comma and I can concatenate multiple values. Okay, so this one will also basically work. So In PostgreSQL, your concat can accept multiple parameters. So not just two parameters. I can also mention here, let's say YouTube. Okay, and this will also get concatenated. So multiple values I can pass, but I think in Oracle you cannot pass multiple. Only two columns you can concatenate using this concat function. Okay, and if you want to put a space here in between, I can put a space here, and basically now when I run this, there will be a space before the YouTube, as you can see. Okay, so this is what concat does. Very simple, nothing too complicated. I'll just move on to the next question. Okay, so because I'm assuming this is all clear, if you have questions, you can post it in the Q&A tab. I'll look into that later. Now let's come to the next one. Find the total balance of all savings account. Can anyone tell me how can I solve this query? What is that one feature of SQL I need to use in order to solve this particular problem? Okay, everyone already knows sum. Find the total balance of the savings account, right? Now, first of all, I need to fetch the data from the accounts table because it's talking about the accounts. And let's say I'm just going to do a star and I'll see. So I have account, I have balance, and they are telling I only need to fetch for the savings account. So how do I fetch only data for the savings account? I can put a filter condition telling there where account type equal to savings, right? And if I run this, there are no savings, is it? Let's see. Accounts. I have low. Okay, it is saving. So it's not. Yes, it's this. Okay, now let me run this. Now you can see I'm getting 31 records. These are all the 31 accounts which basically are savings account. What I need is I need to find a total balance. In order to find a total balance, should I use sum or count? Can you tell me? Is it count or sum? Anyone here thinks it should be count? No? Okay, then fantastic. Then this means everyone has understood the concept. Okay, so it is actually sum, and I need to say sum of balance. And if I run this, you can see that it's printing the balance. Okay, why is it sum? Here I'm telling total balance of all the savings account. But let's say if I had to tell total number of records which are savings account, then I would have to use count. Here I'm telling the total balance, right? So I need to use sum. Okay, I hope this is clear. Let's move on to the next question. And this is this one. Display the total account balance in all loan and savings account. Display the total account balance in all loan. Okay, I think it's pretty repeated. So I'm just going to ignore this. Maybe you can, anyone wants to do it, you can do it on your own. Total account balance in all loan and savings account. Okay, so I think it's very similar. So treat this as assign. Okay, maybe I will try to do this. Okay, I now I remember why I have this query. Can you tell me how I can solve this? There is one particular concept. Okay, of course we need to use the sum and everything, but there's one particular operator that we need to use in order to solve this problem. Okay, so Iram has given a query. I'm going to copy this query. Okay, and I'm going to ask you if this query is going to work or not. Okay, so okay, so Iram has given this query. He's telling select sum of balance where account type equal to loan and saving. So let's say I'll assume that there is a single quotes. Do you think this is going to work? No. Why do you think it will not work? Because this he has not put the column name here. So he has matched account type equal to loan here, and he has not put the column name here, right? So I can put account type equal to saving. So I think the spelling is saving, and this should be, I think, loan. Let's check if I'm what is the loan and saving. Okay, so loan and saving. Now if I run this, do you think it will still work? No, it will still not work. Why? Because I'm using an and operator and sum of balance. Why is this throwing error? Oh, because I do not even have the from clause here. So from accounts. Okay, so now let's say, do you think this will work? It's basically returning me null. Okay, actually it's returning me no records, but since I'm using an aggregate function, it's returning me like this null. Okay, But why is it actually not returning me the sum? The reason is I'm using an AND operator here. So I'm telling fetch those records where the account type is loan and also the account type is saving. So this is like these two conditions are contradicting with each other. You're telling fetch records where the account type is loan, and you're telling also fetch also that same record should also have the account type is equal to saving. How can two different values present in the same column, right, for the particular record? It's not possible, right? So we cannot do that. But if I use an or clause here, or operator here, now I'm able to get the sum. Okay, so this is one way of solving this problem, but there is a better way of solving this problem. Can anyone tell me what is a better way of solving this problem? Anyone? I'm just going to paste it here. There's a better way of solving. Okay, so everyone tells we can use, instead of using equal to, I can use the in operator. Okay, so whenever I'm using an equal to, I always need to pass one value on the right hand side. But if I want to pass multiple values on the right hand side, then I can use the in operator. So here I can just tell in loan and savings. Okay, now if I run this, again the output is exactly the same. Okay, so both these queries are exactly the same, but this is a better way of writing the query. Why? I had in my filter condition, I wanted to put multiple values, that is loan and savings, and instead of putting it inside the or, instead of using a separate two different conditions, I can just put one condition and I can put both the values inside the in clause. Okay, and the opposite of in is we have something called as not in. We will basically check for accounts where they don't have, basically for any record other than loan and saving. We do not have such record. That's why it's returning null. Okay. So I hope this is clear. Now, if this is clear, we still have some time. So I'm going to now introduce you to a new data set. Okay. If you have any questions, you can ask me. I'll try to spend maybe 3 minutes answering any questions. And the reason that I also take breaks between these questions is because if I speak continuously for 90 minutes, it's little difficult. So after around 30 minutes of speaking, it's better that I take a couple of minutes of break. Okay. So in that time, I'll just look at any questions that you have. So, okay, what questions do you have? How to delete 29 records? I actually covered delete in the previous classes. Rajesh, can you look at that recording? It's very simple how to delete records. Maybe you can look at that, and I think you should be able to understand how you can delete specific records. We can just use the delete command and you put a filter condition in the where clause to match all the matching whatever records that you intend to delete. Okay, count of distinct we have seen. What are the scenarios? Okay, so I think no much questions. So everything is already answered. We can also just wait for 5 minutes. Okay, that's also good one, Charita. So but in operation is not exactly a costly operation. It depends on the table that you are using. Okay. Uh, I'll not go in depth of the performance of all this. Okay. To be frank, initially when you're learning SQL, you don't have to worry about performance, but there are certain tips that I will be sharing a little later in my course. Okay, that on what you should do and what you should not do. Instead of using between, I wrote when. So Lay's question is, instead of using between, if you use salary less than or equal to 70,000, then what happens is it will consider every salary from 0 to 70. I only wanted to consider salary from 50 to 70, right? And that is why this will not work. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to continue now. Now we have, I think, solved 18 SQL queries. Okay, I solved 5 or 6 here, and many I had given assignment. And then in the yesterday's class, we had solved, I think, around 10 SQL queries. So we have seen around 28 to 30 SQL queries so far. Okay. Now, what I want to do is, I don't want to be using the same data set. I want to use a new data set. So I will come up with a new data set. So what I'm going to do is, I'll open a new session here, and let me go into my files. So Okay, so previously I have given you this banking data set. Now I'm going to give you access to this salary order data set. Okay, and I'm going to share this data set with you after this class so you can use it. And I am using PostgreSQL. So again, for each database, I have specific data sets you can use. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open this. Okay, and I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here. Okay. Uh, So, okay, there are a lot of records here. There are thousands of records here. Okay. Now, in this particular data set, I got this data set from the internet actually. I think I got it from Kaggle, probably. I took it some time back and I used it in my previous cohort. Okay. So, I took it, so I took it from the internet. Now, you can see that this data set has three tables. And if so, first let's look at the customers table. And I'm in the banking data set. So what I'm going to do is, because in my banking database also I have this customers table. So if I try to recreate it, I'll have to mess it up. So what I'm going to do is I will create a new database. Okay, so I'll try to create a new database for each data set just so that we can keep the data clean. And I'll create a database just by using this command here, and I'll call this like sales order. Okay. So the new database is created. I'll just connect to that database, sales order, and I'll paste my data set here. And you see here I have three tables. Okay. So I have basically this is again the insert command. So I have create table scripts with the whatever constraints is required. Then I have the insert table script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. I think drop table will not work now. I'll just start from create because no table exists. I'm just going to execute it. So the execution is successful. I actually inserted around 3000 records, but still it got executed in like what 205 milliseconds. So it's pretty fast. Okay. Um, I think in Oracle it might take a little more time. PostgreSQL is pretty fast in that. Okay. Okay. So let's look at the data in each of these tables. So I have the customers table. So let's always when you have to solve some queries or understand something, it's always the first thing that you need to understand is the data set. Okay. In this data set, I have three tables. I have the customer table, products table, and the sales order table. So let's look at the customers table. You can see that. I hope the screen is big enough for you to see. Okay. I have the customer ID, I have the customer name, I have the phone number, I have the address, I have the city, state, postal code, and country. Okay. So these are all the information that is present. So just by looking at this table, I can tell that how many records I have. So you can see I have 92 customers, right? So the customer ID is a primary key column, their name is present, and all the personal information is present here, right? Then I have a products table, which basically has information about the product. So I have the product code, which is the primary key, as you can see here. And there are 109 records here. The product line, so it's like motorcycle, classic cars, and some of the products. Okay. So each product code is different. And what is the price of each product is mentioned here. Okay. And then I have the sales order table. And here I have basically 2823 records. Okay. And you can see I have an unique order ID. It's a primary key. Then quantity order, how in each of this order, how many items were actually purchased, what was the price of each item, what was the total sales amount. So the total sales amount will always be quantity ordered into price each. So if I do 30 into 95, I should probably get this value. Okay. And then when was the order, basically the order date, what is the status of the order. So this is shipped. There might be some other orders as well. So this is disputed. And then let's say if we have, then there is in process. And then I think we might have some other status as well. Okay. And then I have this quarter ID. Quarter ID basically tells the quarter of the order. Okay. When it's basically representing the order date, which quarter. So in a year we have 4 quarters, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the quarter one is Jan to March. Quarter two is what is that? April to May, April to June, and quarter three is July to September, and so on, right? So this is basically telling which quarter it belongs to and which month ID. So in quarter one, month ID 2, basically month ID will always be 1 to 12 in this particular case, and it's basically telling which month it belongs to. Okay, and then you have the year here, and then which product was actually purchased from this order is mentioned here. then which customer actually purchased this order is mentioned here, and then it's telling the deal size depending on maybe the price of that order or the total sales of that order. They're telling whether this was a big order, medium order, or a large order. Okay, so that is mentioned here. Now, is this clear? This sales order table, did you get some basic understanding about these three tables, what they have? Everyone clear? Because now we'll start solving queries using this data set. So since you do not have access to this data set as yet, but at least you get some understanding, right? Okay, so I'm going to solve some queries. So I'm hoping that since you have already learned a few things about all these concepts, you should be able to solve some of these problems on your own. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have this question here, and I'm going to do one thing. Okay, so can anyone? I'll just paste this. I hope you can see this problem. Fetch all the small shipments orders from August 2003 till the end of year 2003. Can anyone solve this problem? So I'm going to copy these tables and I'll paste it here. Okay, so fetch all the small shipment orders from August 2003 till the end of year 2003. Okay, so I'm just going to showcase you the data here from this table. Can anyone write this query? So just write this query and share it with me. Okay, I'll just be back in 2 minutes. Just give me 2 minutes, I'll come back. But until then, if you can write this query, just write it and share it here. Okay, I'll just be back in 2 minutes. Okay, sorry for the break. Did anyone solve this problem? So I see one query shared by Digital Tech Connect. So I'm just going to copy that query and paste it here and let's see if that works. Okay, so select order number from sales order where order date between this and this. And okay, so fetch all the small. Do you think this will work? I don't think this is going to solve the problem. Between this here equal to this. Okay, so I see Ram has shared a query. The syntax may not be right, but he has considered deal size. Okay, so let's try to solve this problem. So first of all, fetch all the small shipped orders from August 2003 to the end of 2003, right? So the very first thing that I need to know is which is a table that I need to consider, right? I can very well say that I need to consider only one table, sales order. Why? Because in order to find if the shipment is small or large, I can just use this particular column which is present in the sales order table. And then in order to identify if the order happened between August 2003 and till the end of 2003, again I can just use either this order date field or I can also use these three fields, right? I have this month ID and year ID, right? So let's try to do this now. Let's say find all the small shipments. So I'm just going to say star because they did not specify count or sum or whatever. So all the columns will be fetched. And my very first filter condition is I can just tell deal size equal to small, right? That's the very first filter. The second filter condition I need to do is from August 2003 till the end of year 2003, right? So when they say from August 2003, most of you guys are correct. You are considering from 1st August until the 31st December, this one. But instead of that, you can also use these columns here, right? So I can just tell where month ID and this is from, right? So I can just tell greater than or equal to 8, okay? Because we know 8 is basically August, right? And you can also verify that with this order date, okay? So greater than or equal to this one, okay? Yeah, I think that's all, right? And then I can just tell where year equal to 2003, right? Uh, yeah, so let's see now if this works. I'm getting an error. What was the column name? Is it not year? Okay, it is year ID. Year ID. And now if I run this, now you can see I'm getting 293 records. And I think this is all the orders which are small shipments and which happened between August and December of 2003. Okay. Of course, I can also solve this using the order date field, but I can also solve it using these two fields. Is it clear? What did I do? Month ID, I'm just checking if it is always greater than 8, that is for August, and I know that I'm only interested in 2003, right? Another way of solving this same problem is by using the order date field, right? So instead of specifying the month ID and year ID, I can also tell order date, okay? So I can do like what you guys did. So I can say order date between, and here I can just tell, I think in PostgreSQL, I don't need to provide any date function, but here I will use it. So I'll just tell to date of 01st 01 dash 2003, and the same thing I'll copy again. And here I'll just tell, I know the last day of the month is always 31st December 2003, right? And now if I run this again, okay, I'm getting an error, to date. Oh, okay. So I forgot, whenever you're using to date, you need to provide the value and then you need to provide the format. So the format is DDMM1234, and I'll copy the same thing here. Okay. Now if I run this, you can see that I'm getting 444 records. Why am I getting more records? Between, oh, because I'm putting 1 1, so it's not 1 1, it should be 1 8. I'm checking for August, right? So now let me run this. I'm getting 293. So you can see here also I'm getting 293 records. This is also fetching 293 records. So what this means is both these queries are returning the same result, both are correct, okay? Just I'm using two different ways of writing this query. Is it clear? Did you understand uh, why I use this? So here I had to use a to-date function to basically find between dates, but here I could simply use the two integer columns to do this. This is more easier to do, right? I don't need to run a function here, but there it is very easy. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now let's go into the next problem. Okay, and I'm going to share with you some assignments because I wanted to solve 11 more queries in this session, but uh, I will share some of the queries as assignment. Okay. So we still have another 7 minutes. Maybe I will solve. This is the last problem, and then I will answer some questions, and then I will give you some assignments. Okay. So this is a question. Let's see who can solve this problem now. Okay. Is there a question? What if I need data from August to November by using the first method? Okay. So good question here from Sandeep. So let's try to do that. Okay. And I want to entertain this kind of questions. Wherever you ask me question which is related to the topic that I cover and which might give you some additional information, I will try to always answer that, because there is always so much you can learn, and there is not everything that I can cover, right? You have to learn on your own by your own practice. But let's try to answer this. So if I want to find the same thing, but I only want to find from August to November, so that's what Sandeep is telling. How I can do is month ID is greater than or equal to 8. Okay. What I can do in this case is I can just tell month ID between 8 and 11, right? I can do this. Now if I run this, You can see I'll get 267, right? Why? Because I'm checking for month ID, which is either equal to 8, 9, 10, or 11, right? So this is one way of doing this. Is it clear, Sandeep? Okay. So you ship status equal to shipment is absent. Is there a status equal to shipment? Fetch all the small shipped orders. We we were not looking for status equal to shipment. We were only looking for small shipped orders. So that is why we are using deal size. Okay. So they never told that we need to consider only those orders where the status is shipment. It's not mentioned here. Okay. Now let's go into get into the second problem. Find all the orders which do not belong to customers from USA and are still in process. Can anyone solve this problem? If anyone can solve it, solve it. But for others, can you help me to solve this? So can you tell me what are the tables I need to consider here and what are the filter conditions I need to use here? Find all the orders which do not belong to customers from USA. Anyone? Which tables should I use here? Customer table, customer and order table. We can use not in. Okay, fine. Okay, sales order and customers table, right? Find all the orders which do not belong to customers from USA. Okay, how do I identify if a customer is from USA or not? So if I go into my customers table, I have this country column here, and here if I just put not equal to USA, I should be able to get all the customers who did not belong to USA, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll write that first part of the query here. So I'll say this one where country not equal to USA, right? So this should basically fetch me all the customers who do not belong to USA. So orders which do not belong to customers from USA and are still in process. And now here they are telling we need to consider only orders which are still in process, right? So here let's say I'll just tell select start from sales order where status is equal to in process. So what was that? So in the sales order table, or let's go down here, I'll just do distinct of status. And if I run this, so I have this many statuses here. So there is one thing called as in process, and exactly that is what I wanted. I only want to fetch orders which are still in process. So here I can just put this. And if I run this, and let's say I remove this and this. Okay, so these are all the sales order where the status is still in process, right? So first I took all the customers who are not from USA, then I took all the sales order whose status is still in process. Now I need to merge these two things together. I need to bring them together. How do I bring them together? I need to join these two tables, right? So yeah, so let's try to now merge these two queries together in this our main query here. Okay, so first of all I'm going to take the customers table, give an alias C, then I'm going to do an inner join. I'm going to skip the inner keyword here, and then I'm going to say sales order table, and I'll call it like yes. Okay, and then I'll join it. So how do I join these two tables? Now my sales order table, this is my sales order table. Here I have this column customer, right? And in my customer table, I think I have the customer ID, right? So I can join it with, let's say, yes dot customer equal to c dot customer ID. Okay, so this is how I can join it. And then, so let's say if I do a star here, so I am getting all the matching records, but the filter condition that I need to put is I need to put this filter condition where country not equal to USA and country is coming from my C table, and I need to put the status condition where status is equal to E in process. So I'll just tell yes dot status is equal to in process. So I have put both my filter conditions, and now let me run this. Now you can see I'm getting this 37 records. So what this means is these are the 37 orders which belong which are still in process, and it belongs to customers who are not from USA. Okay, so this is how I can solve it. And whenever you're trying to solve the problem, this is how you can break down your problem. Always try to break down your problem into multiple parts if it is possible, and then you try to solve each part on its own, and then once you have the solution for the each part, then try to merge them together. This will make it very easy for you to solve the problem. Okay, it's only when you're getting started. Now this was a very simple problem. I could have written it at once, but I wanted to explain you the method of how you should be solving a problem. When you're solving a more complex problem, it is always better to break the problem into multiple parts. Okay, is this clear? Any questions on this? Clear? Okay, so if everything is clear, now I am going to share some assignments with you. Okay, I'm not sure if everyone will be able to solve this problem, but I'll still share it. Whoever is able to solve it, try to solve it. Whoever is not able to solve it, do not worry. I will try to solve them in the next session. Okay, so I'm still going to give it as assignment. Okay, so the assignments for session 6. Okay, so I have these two we already solved. I have these many queries. Try to solve it on your own. Can you guys solve it? So we have how many? 9. So there are 9 queries here. But don't think that I'm just going to give you assignment. I'm not going to solve it. I will try to solve it myself. I think some of these queries are pretty simple. Some of them might be hard. Whatever is hard, you let me know. I'll try to solve it. Okay. Um, that's good, Tim. Good to hear that. Will you put the queries? Yes, yes. Everything right. Okay. So first of all, let me save this into my notes file today. So this is my. I did 2 different things, right? So this is the second part, and then I did here, right? So yeah, I solved all these queries here. So I'm just going to copy this. I'll paste it here. Using banking data set. Okay, 8. We went up to 18 query here, and then I say using sales order data set. Okay. Okay, fine. So I have the notes ready. All of this, whatever we solved, I will be sharing it with you. So I think that's all I have for today, everyone. And we have finished 2 weeks, 6 sessions. In the next session, I'm again going to continue with the basic SQL queries. Let me see if I can come up with a few more basic SQL queries, maybe using some other data set. And if any of these queries are more challenging to you, whatever I've given in assignment today, right, I will try to solve them as well in the next class. Okay. So hopefully one more session with basic SQL queries. And if you guys insist, I can take 2 more if you want, but I think 1 more should be pretty good enough. And then after that, I will start with the intermediate concept. Okay. One update here. Next week, the class is going to be on Tuesday. Okay. I think it is on 16th of August. Wednesday, I am off because I have some personal work. And then we'll continue with Thursday and Friday. Okay. Tim, can you look at the what was that? The recording of merge. If it is not clear, even after watching the recording, then you let me know. Then I will try to explain it maybe in the next class. Okay. No class tomorrow. The next class is next week on Tuesday. Okay. Okay. So I'll just look at not Monday. Yeah. For I think for US it is on Monday. Okay. If you're in US. Let me look at the Q&A for the next 5 minutes and then I will end the class. Okay. If anyone wants to leave, you can leave. Okay. Casing matters for names. No, none of these queries are case sensitive. Only thing, the value that you give in your filter condition inside the single quotes, they are case sensitive. Okay. Here it does not matter. It's not case sensitive. I think when it comes to Python, when you create a variable in Python, the variables are actually case sensitive, but not in SQL. Okay. How from which site did I take it? Okay, so I think this data set I downloaded probably from Kaggle. Okay, I don't remember exactly where. I should have saved the site, but I took this data set, I think, few months back from my, I used it for my previous course, but I forgot from where I took it, man. So if I find it, I'll share it with you. But generally, whenever I want to find data sets, I just either go to Google. Of course, Google is the first place, but generally we'll find data sets in Kaggle, or I think there is a Data World website where you can get it as well. Okay, and generally you can also get it from this one. What is that? GitHub. In GitHub also you can find. So some of the data sets I have taken from GitHub actually. So, and some data sets I create myself using the Mokaru website. Okay. Will you upload assignments? Yes, I have. When I join two more table, can I transfer the data obtained from joining to a new table? If yes, can you show once? When I join two or more tables, can I transfer the data obtained from joining to a new table? Yeah, I did not understand this question, Rajesh. What do you mean transfer the data obtained from one joining to a new table? I don't know. What do you mean by transferring data from one table to another? In first question, if need data from June 2000 to August 2014, okay, so I think Achyut, I already explained this, right? Because someone asked till November, how do I fetch? You can just change, if you go back here, if you, whatever month you want, right? Whether it is from Jan to, what do you want from June to August, you put 6 to 8, it will fetch the result, right? Explain more inbuilt functions. We will come to inbuilt function. I'll probably take one particular session just covering inbuilt functions. Okay. In first question, if I need data from, okay, so I already answered that. So I think no other questions here. Did you like today's class? Was it useful? We solved a lot of problems. To be frank, I think we have already seen around 30, including this assignment, we have almost seen 40 SQL, basic SQL queries. I'll still come up with maybe 10 more SQL, basic SQL queries, and then we'll get into intermediate things. Did you find the class useful? Is it? Are you guys learning? Are you guys feeling more comfortable with basic SQL concepts? I know many people already know the basics. Ignoring them, all the people who are starting from scratch, do you feel confident that you will be able to solve basic SQL queries? Because I told you, right, if you want to call yourself that you are comfortable in writing basic SQL queries, you should be comfortable with these concepts. And every question that I have come up with, I am planning to cover all of these concepts. Okay. So, okay. So, yeah, you of course need to do practice. Just by listening to me and watching me, you will not learn everything. You have to practice on your own. You have to modify the query, because I tell you, right, every query there will be so many scenarios. You can modify the query on your own, and then you will learn. Work in prod more confidently now. Okay, fantastic. So I'm glad that it is helping everyone. So that's the whole purpose of this course. At the end of the day, it should be beneficial to you. I do not want to be just another online course that anyone takes and forgets about it after a month. I want it to actually benefit you, and I want it to tomorrow, if you go for an interview, you should actually benefit from it. And we'll be solving a lot of interview questions. I'd be very happy if someone gets a job with the help of this course. Okay. Um, my question is unanswered. What question, Vishnu? Can we do bulk import of data like .csv or Excel format in any table once the necessary columns are created? Can we do a bulk import once the data like CSV, Excel format in any table? Yes, you can do it. In fact, this particular data set, right, Vishnu, I did it like that only. So I'll show you the actual file that I got. Okay, so I have this file. So this was the actual, I think it was an XLS file or a CSV file, I don't remember. I'll just open this. So the actual file that I got from the what is that? From the internet was like this. It had only one tab. These three tabs I created because I was trying to segregate the data. Basically, the original file looked like this. I hope you can see this. So if you see here, this was the original file. It was like this. So we have, I think I have also changed the column names. These are all the column names, no underscore, nothing. And you had everything in one file, one tab. So all of this, so you can see here, product code, and then, yeah, so you see the product line, product code, price, everything, customer information. So the customer, product, and sales order, everything was in one file. What I did was I split that one tab into three different files. So I put it into three different tabs here. I segregated the customers, products, and sales order. And then once I created these, Then I loaded them into PostgreSQL um, using the simple method. So if you go to PostgreSQL, you just go to the table. So let's say you go to schemas, go to public, go to tables. Okay, choose any table, right click on that table. You have this import export. So you have this import export data section. And since I wanted to import the data, I clicked on import here. Then I chose the file that I wanted. So you can choose whatever file you want. Okay, so I chose that particular file. Then I told you whether it was in CSV. I think it must have been in CSV only. Then that's it. Most of the CSV files will be comma separated. But if your CSV file is having some other separations, other delimiter, then you can specify the delimiter here. Otherwise, you can keep everything the default settings. And if your file has headers, you can choose headers. And then I just did an OK, it just imported. So it is very simple. And this same thing is available in every RDBMS, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server. So just right click on the table, do an import, and it should import into your tables. Okay, and that's it. Okay. Okay, so that's all, guys, for today. I'm going to end the class. After this class, I'll share the data set and I'll share this every note what we have done, and also the assignment. Try to solve the assignment before you come to the Tuesday class. Okay, that is the next week class. Okay, so thank you everyone, and I'm just going to stop the recording now.